Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 23a, top of the page with the words Lefi Achlo LeMitzvah. According to his eating, you shall make your count for the lamb. Exodus 12:4. This teaches that one may bring the paschal offering only if he is able to partake of it. The Gemara responds, this requirement is also meant as a mitzvah ab initio, which means means like the way you should do it to begin with, primarily, the primary way to do it. It does not disqualify the offering if not fulfilled. Okay. ולעקוב אליו יתניא במכסת נפשות מלמד שאין הפסח נשחט אלא למנוייו שחטו שלו למנוייו יכול יהיה כעובר על המצווה תלמוד לומר תחוסו הכתוב שנה עליו לעכב ויתעקש אוכלים למנוייו. The Gemara asks, and is this requirement not indispensable even after the fact? But isn't it taught in a Braita that the phrase according to the number of the souls teaches that the paschal offering may be slaughtered only for those who registered for it in advance? If the paschal offering was slaughtered for individuals who did not register for it, one might have thought that it would only be like transgressing a mitzvah, but the offering would not be disqualified. Therefore, the verse states, you shall make your count. The verse repeats the issue of counting to stress that the halakha is indispensable. And if one slaughters the offering for one who is not registered, it is disqualified. The Gemara concludes, and those who eat the offering are juxtaposed to those who registered for it. As the verse states, according to the number of the souls, a man according to his eating. Accordingly, if one slaughters the paschal offering for one who cannot partake of it, the offering is disqualified. Ziknei darom lemakshi. The Gemara responds that the elders of the south do not juxtapose the phrases. Ziknei darom lemakshi v'chi lemakshi nami meha nami islahu pircha ומה במקום שנתבבל עם משרץ שמשלחין בקורבנותיהם לכתחילו כהן שנתבע בשרץ אינו מרצה במקום שנתבלים במס שאין משלחין קורבנותיהם לכתחילו כהן שנתבע במס ינדין שאינו מרצה. The Gemara responds, the elders of the south do not juxtapose the phrases, meaning they do not interpret the verse's juxtaposition of the two verses as significant. The Gemara asks, but even if they do not juxtapose the phrases, there is a refutation to their statement from this inference as well. And just as in a case where the owner became impure due to a creeping animal, where he may send his offerings for sacrifice ab initio, a priest who became impure due to a creeping animal nevertheless cannot affect acceptance, then in a case where the owner became impure due to a corpse, where he may not send his offerings ab initio, is it not right that a priest who became impure due to a corpse cannot affect acceptance?
Furthermore,
The Gemara raises an objection from a Mishnah in Zevachim 80b. As the sages said, that with regard to a Nazirite and one who performs the rite of the Paschal offerings, the front plate affects acceptance for offerings sacrificed in a state of impurity of the blood, but the front plate does not affect acceptance for offerings sacrificed in a state of impurity of the body of the individual bringing it. B'mai, ilim betumas sheretz, amret b'shochlim zokin on tumas sheretz. Ela tumas meis, v'gatoni, ela tzitz miratze, alma nitma, ba'alim b'meisim mishalchin korban oiseihen. The Gemara continues, to what impurity is it referring? If we say that it is referring to impurity due to a creeping animal, didn't you say above that according to the elders of the south, one may slaughter the Paschal offering and sprinkle its blood for an owner who is in a state of impurity due to a creeping animal? Rather, it must be referring to impurity due to a corpse. And the Mishnah teaches, the front plate does not affect acceptance. Evidently, if the owner became impure due to a corpse, he may not send his offerings for sacrifice, contrary to the opinion ascribed to the elders of the south. Look, the Gemara responds, no. If the owner became impure due to a corpse, the front plate indeed affects acceptance for the offering. The Mishnah is not referring to the owners of the offerings at all. Rather, here we are dealing with a case where the officiating priest became impure due to a creeping animal. Yehoshua Hatani Rabbi Chia lo amor tumas atahom ela lemes bilvad lemes b'mutimai lav l'uzi tumas atahom l'sheretz. The Gemara asks, if so, say the latter cause the Mishnah. If it became known after the offering was brought that he had contracted ritual impurity imparted in the depths, meaning a source of impurity that had been unknown at the time, the front plate affects acceptance for the offering. This clause cannot be reconciled with the suggested interpretation of the Mishnah, since Rabbi Chia teaches, they stated, this halacha of impurity imparted in the depths only with regard to impurity due to a corpse. Now, when he says that it applies to impurity due to a corpse, he means to exclude what? Does he not mean to exclude impurity imparted by the carcass of a creeping animal in the depths? If so, the Mishnah cannot be referring to impurity due to a creeping animal. Lo, lemuti tumas atahom deziva. The Gemara responds, no. Rabbi Chia means to exclude impurity imparted by a gonorrhea-like discharge, a ziva in the depths. Impurity due to the corpse of a creeping animal, by contrast, is within the scope of the Mishnah. Ve'ela ha'debayr rachama kohenim ratzi v'korban asiyin hutrat lo tumata atehom o lo utra lo tumat atehom tivshoti tumat atehom utra lo deha hacha bekoin kayamina. The Gemara asks, but how is one to understand this dilemma that Rami Bar Chama raises with regard to a priest who affects acceptance for the offerings of the Nazarite and the Paschal offering? Was impurity imparted in the depths permitted for him, or was impurity imparted in the depths not permitted for him? According to the elders of the south, why not resolve the dilemma and conclude that impurity imparted in the depths was permitted for him, since they hold that we interpret the Mishnah here as referring to an impure priest? The Gemara responds to the premise of this dilemma of Rami Bar Chama certainly disagrees with the opinion of the elders of the south, and Rami Bar Chama does not interpret the Mishnah in this manner. Tashima, the Gemara suggests, here proof. from a verse when it's written about the front plate. V'nasa Haron et avon hakadoshim v'chi ezel avon noseh. Okay, come and hear a proof from the verse written about the front plate. And it shall be upon Aaron's forehead, and Aaron shall bear the sin committed with the sacred items, which the children of Israel shall consecrate, even all their sacred gifts, and it shall always be upon his forehead, that they may be accepted before God. Exodus 28:38. And the sages expounded, what sin does Aaron bear? Now we're turning to 23b, top of the page. Im avon pigul harei kvar nemar yechashev, ve'im avon notar harei kvar nemar lo yiratzeh. If the verse means that he bears the sin of pigul, it is already stated, and if any of the flesh of his peace offerings be all at all eaten on the third day, it shall not be accepted, neither shall be credited to he who offers it. Leviticus 7:18. If he bears the sin of notar, it is already stated in the same verse, it shall not be accepted. Vital. Oh, where were we? Yeah, the top of 23b, where it said, so your top of 23b, we'll just start from the top. Im avon pigul harei kvar nemar lo yechashev, im avon notar harei kvar nemar lo yiratzeh. If the verse means that he bears the sin of pigul, it is already stated, and if any of the flesh of his peace offering would be at all eaten on the third day, it shall not be accepted, neither shall be credited to he who offers it. Leviticus 7:18. If he bears the sin of notar, it is already stated in the same verse, it shall not be accepted. Rather, the front plate bears only the sin of impurity, whose general prohibition was permitted in cases involving the public. The verse indicates that the front plate affects acceptance for individual offerings, sacrifice in a state of ritual impurity. My tuma'ilim mitumas sheretz, hecha ishterai, ela tumas meis, velav kegon shnitmu ba'alim b'meis, alma nitma'u ba'alim b'meis, mishalchim kol menoisehim. The Gemara clarifies what is the impurity borne by the front plate if we say that it affects acceptance for impurity due to a creeping animal. Where does one find that the general prohibition was permitted in cases involving the public? Rather, it must be referring to impurity due to a corpse, and it is not referring to a case where the owner of the offerings became impure from a corpse. Evidently, if the owner became impure from a corpse, he may send his offerings for sacrifice, as the front plate affects acceptance for them. If And to what offering is the statement referring? If it is referring to the offering of a Nazarite, doesn't the merciful one state, and if any man dies very suddenly beside him, and he defile his consecrated head? Numbers 6, verse 9, the passage indicates that even if a Nazarite contracts impurity against his will, he still cannot bring his offerings until he is pure. Rather, it must be referring to one who performs the rite of the paschal offering. This proves the claim of the elders of the south that one who is impure due to a corpse may send his paschal offering for sacrifice. Le'olam b'sheretz Hashem tuma ba'olam. The Gemara responds, actually, the statement is referring to impurity due to a creeping animal, not to a corpse. And although the general prohibition with regard to impurity due to a creeping animal was not permitted in cases involving the public, nevertheless, one finds the category of impurity in general was permitted in such cases. Avon Magdishim Lo. The Gemara notes, and some infer the opposite and derive like this. The verse states, of the front plate, and it shall be upon Aaron's forehead, and Aaron shall bear the sin committed with the sacred items. Exodus 28:38. That is, it does bear the iniquity of the sacred items, but it does not bear the iniquity of those who consecrate or sacrifice them, meaning the owners of the offering or the priests involving it in its sacrifice. And to what impurity is this verse referring? If we say that it is referring to impurity due to a creeping animal, is such impurity permitted in cases involving the public? Rather, is it not referring to impurity due to a corpse? And the verse indicates that the front plate does bear the iniquity of the sacred items, but does not bear the iniquity of those who consecrate them. This refutes the opinion of the elders of the South that owners who are impure due to a corpse may send their offerings. L'olam tumasheret b'shem tuma ba'oil. Your response, actually, the verse is referring to impurity due to a creeping animal, and although the general prohibition with regard to impurity due to a creeping animal was not permitted in cases involving the public, the category of impurity in general was permitted in such cases. Yoshev minalan Amar Rav Nachman Amar Kra Laman Leshares La'amida Bechaltiv Below Yeshiva. The Mishnah teaches that a priest who is sitting disqualifies the rites that he performs. The Gemara asks, from where do we derive this? Rav says that Rav Nachman says the verse states with regard to the priests, for the Lord your God has chosen him out of all your tribes to stand to minister. Deuteronomy 18 verse 5. The verse indicates that I have chosen him for standing and not for sitting. Tana Rabbanan Lamoid l'shares mitzvah kishumer haomdim shanalav hakasur le'akev. The sages taught, Tana Rabbanan, sages taught, to stand to minister indicates that, the words in the verse Lamod l'shares, to stand to minister, indicates that there is a mitzvah to perform the service while standing. When it says, then he shall minister in the name of the Lord his God, as all his brethren Levites do so who stand before the Lord. Deuteronomy 18 verse 7. The verse repeats the matter to invalidate rites that are performed while not standing. Amar le Rav Nachman Mechti Yoshev Kazar Dami Umechel Avoida Ema Mazar B'Misa Af Yoshev B'Misa Alma Tanya Avar Arel Onen Yoshev Einan B'Misa Be'azah. Rav says from Nachman, now one who is sitting is considered like a non-priest and desecrates the service. Therefore I will say, just as a non-priest who performed a rite is liable to receive death at the hand of heaven, so too one who is sitting should be liable to receive death at the hand of heaven. If so, why is it taught in Braita? But if one who is uncircumcised and acute mourner and one who is sitting are not liable to receive death at the hand of heaven if they perform rites, rather they simply transgress a prohibition. Mishum b'havi mechus begadim v'shelo rachlut yadayim v'raglayim shnei ksuvim habayim kechad. The Gemara responds that that is taught because the case of a priest lacking the requisite priestly vestments, and that of one whose hands and feet are not washed, are two verses that come as one, as the verse states explicitly for each case that they perform rites, they are liable to receive death at the hand of heaven. To be continued.